please remember that nothing we say here should be taken as personal advice. The conversation is for entertainment purposes only. If you have questions about your financial situation, please talk to a licensed financial advisor.
Let's go.
Welcome to another episode of Future Money, where we talk about the technologies of the future
that make us money.
This is Eyal Shmilovich, managing partner at Gerber Kawasaki.
And Hatem, also managing partner at GK.
And as a special guest, we have Brett Sifling, our rising star, our Mr. NFT himself, aka the Prince of Coin, with us. And on this episode of Future Money, we will actually be talking about the future of money, which is why Brett Sifling is here joining us.
Yeah, I mean, the hottest thing is crypto these days. So we wanted to get not our master of coin, just the Prince of Coin, right? Brett is one of our director of our Get Invested program. He's our rising stars. He's been with us for many years now, despite his very young age. And maybe Brett, give us a little background.
Yeah, happy to be jumping on the podcast with you guys, and been in crypto probably since about 2017 and really just fell in love with the entire ecosystem. I've actually been at NFT LA at the convention center all week.
Spoiling it.
Yeah, sorry. Well, meeting people with my DAO and attending a lot of the talks, and so excited to also share what I've learned here too.
You said DAO. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, we can jump right in.
Threw it in there,
it's a money conversation. People think like the Dow Jones, you know what I mean? So I make sure that.
DAO is DAO, so it's Decentralized Autonomous Community, and basically it's a bunch of people getting together through some type of project like NFTs, and they all have a collective interest in something, whether it's golf, arts, culture, whatever it may be. It's basically just a community of people.
Yeah. So let's start there, right? Let's talk about. So what we wanted to do today. You're tuning in from NFT LA, which is a big conference apparently at the convention center. Is convention center also sponsored by Crypto.com yet or no?
Yeah,
no. Yeah, it is. Okay. What a world!
This is all very meta.
What
and
a world!
We'll talk about metaverse a little bit. But.
So we wanted to introduce our listeners to really kind of blockchain initially, what crypto is, and then really want to talk about this, NFTs and what's the allure and why how people can be involved and what they should be worried about and so forth. So
yeah, and really talk a little bit about kind of the history and the progression of money throughout time and how, is crypto, is blockchain a flash in the pan, or is it really a revolutionary thing? So I think we should start off by just maybe talking about blockchain itself. What is it? I mean, everybody talks about the blockchain. Let's give them a little high level definitions here.
I'll start there. I mean, basically, it's a decentralized ledger. It's basically a way for you to keep track of digital or just traditional assets or things in a way that can be accounted for by a lot of people. So it's not centralized, it's decentralized, whereby everyone can see who owns what and when and what transactions happen with that blockchain. So it's really technology, right? It's just a piece of technology, and it just happens that it has a lot of uses, right, Brett?
Yeah, I think that it's really important what you said there is that it's really about the technology, because when people are really introduced into crypto, they assume that eventually the US dollar is going to disappear and they're going to be paying for their Starbucks coffee with some type of other, coin, whether that's, Bitcoin, which is obviously very, very inefficient to do transactions like that, or it's something else. But that's not really what this is about. It's more about the technology that enables these types of things.
Yeah, I think that's really important because, people hear Bitcoin and they go, well, I can't really buy anything with my Bitcoin. So what's the point of blockchain? And I think that's a great thing for everybody to start with is Bitcoin, number one, does not equal blockchain. Let's go with that. And that there's many other technologies, not just crypto assets, but there's many other applications to the blockchain that we'll get into in addition to crypto assets as well.
Yeah. So basically, maybe cryptocurrency is a misleading word. I think cryptos in general maybe can be currencies, but also can be not currencies. They
Yeah.
can be used for other things, right? So let's go back and talk a little bit about history of money, right? So if we're saying currency, where do we start now? Ayal, history is your thing. I'd love to go back and let's figure out who the heck came up with money.
Yeah, so I do have a second degree from college in history, and Brett actually has a minor in archaeology, right, Brett?
Yep, absolutely. Studied under William Folke, one of the legendary archaeologists, really in the world.
Awesome. So we're gonna nerd out in the history section a little bit here, and then we'll get into the current stuff. So I think talking about the history of money is very important when we're talking about the future of money, because where did all this come from, right? So, way back, right? We first started with bartering, right? That's kind of like prehistoric. I'll trade you a cow for a sheep, or or really, many other things. And then we got, some cultures that basically found certain currencies, not standardized, but you had seashells, and you had some tribes traded teeth as currency, which is, kind of creepy and gross, but they did it. So there's all kinds of other beads, things that basically had a common form among the people.
So whatever they saw value in.
Exactly. And these shells, like, are one example. They were sort of like they all were sort of the same shape and size for the most part, so they can kind of use them, and they were rare enough, but not too rare that they couldn't use them. So, but then we get to obviously the advent of what we all mostly know, which is precious metals, right? Gold and silver being the big ones. And we start to see that gold and silver really come into play in the Bronze Age, 3000 BC or so is kind of when we start to see this, really at the advent of civilization.
Was that because they're shiny?
Yeah, people love shiny things.
Love shiny things.
Literally, huh? That's literally why.
So there's a couple reasons. Shiny is definitely part
Scarcity,
of it.
maybe.
Scarcity is one of it.
Too.
Yeah, and you could build a lot of stuff out of it, but shiny is definitely one of the reasons.
All right.
And so what's kind of cool here, and Brett, I don't know if you've ever studied like Mesopotamia and Babylonia, but like their entire they're credited with sort of inventing the first quote writing system. It's called cuneiform, and their entire system is based on accounting. Basically, the whole language is basically based on accounting.
Oh wow, okay.
And that's what this system of coinage and using metals really sort of starts to take shape.
So this is like the first accounting system,
correct?
To basically keep track of what people have and who gets what.
Yeah. Okay. So their writing system was not really based on conversations or stories. It was based on, you have 3 sheep, I have 5 these, and that kind of. So it was sort of like one step above hieroglyphics.
Amazing.
And then we really start to see like the advent of standardized coinage, basically in Bronze Age Greece and Turkey. Yeah. So this is like the 7th century, 6th centuries, around there. Yeah. We start to see the coins that, the old coins with people's faces on them and things like that. Yeah. And it's now for the first time we have a currency that is used amongst people and then intercommerce as well. Yep. So the standardized coins is what allows trade to happen more freely between these societies. Right. Brett, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that I just remember seeing a lot of these actual coins and getting to actually play with them. And I just remember, one, the metals being so malleable, so they could actually like form them into these types of things. And a lot of like the older like shells and beads and things that you're talking about would actually have holes in them, because people there was no bank, right? So people held their money on them, typically like in a necklace, right? So if you drilled a hole through your shells and you had your shells in your necklace, that was like your savings account.
A lot of muggings back in the day.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. So then you start to get into like, coinage becomes very popular, and then we get into medieval banking. Right. And really the advent of the modern accounting and monetary system starts to happen in the Renaissance.
Right. I watched the Medici.
There you go.
Yeah, around the 13th century.
14th century. Yeah. The Medici are actually responsible for people who don't know, are responsible for modern banking. Yep. So you can either thank them or,
they were like the middle finger, the central bank of the world, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
They loaned money to everyone so they can kill each other.
Exactly.
It was great.
Yeah. They actually used to loan money to the Pope. Yeah. Like the Pope, the Vatican would loan money from them. And when the loan comes due, it doesn't matter who you are. Yeah. But they invented double book accounting, which is the same systems we use today, basically. Yeah. And so
and everyone likes to give bankers slack, right? But ultimately, like this invention of debt, right?
yeah,
It just accelerates economic activity
absolutely.
and like human civilization at such a rapid pace when that comes into the picture.
Totally. And I'm glad you said that, Brett, because it actually brings up like, so we hear about all the voyages of these, Christopher Columbus and Magellan and Vasco da Gama and all these guys in the Renaissance period. It was the advent of this debt financing that actually made this possible.
You got to pay for things, right?
Yeah.
Someone has to pay for food
but the efficiency of like not having to transport a bunch of gold to somebody to give them, the ability to sail and bring back treasure or whatever they were bringing, really made discovery possible. And it sort of brought us to the next level of monetary policy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to geek out too much, but also, the fact that there is money allows for every person to maybe specialize in doing something versus doing everything at once and being a farmer and just making your own food and so forth. Right?
Absolutely.
So
and that was kind of the point of the currency, right? Is that you didn't have to just like somehow do everything where you had to trade for something else.
Correct.
Right. And so then we get into modern day, right? We have the first advent of banknotes or paper money we see in the Song Dynasty in China, actually.
Right. Oh, is it? Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So that was I think in the 11th century, somewhere around there. And then the rest of the world starts to catch up. In the US, we start to use paper money. Basically, the paper money was just an IOU for gold.
Yep.
Right? I didn't have to lug around a pound of gold with me.
Yep.
And now we get paper money and we get off the gold standard, Hatem. What happens then?
Inflation, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
So the gold standard, but basically what happens is every dollar or every franc or whatever money was created had a back-in by gold, but we spent so much money during the Vietnam War that we could not find enough gold to support that. So Nixon basically takes the U.S. off the gold standard, and that creates the era of just printing money and inflation and so forth.
Yeah, thank God we don't do that anymore, right?
Yeah.
So we got that, and now we're off the gold standard, and now we can print money. The Treasury can print money whenever they want. Yeah, right. We see inflation. Then we get the advent of credit cards, right? This is the next iteration. Yep. And digitization of cash, right? So
I want to go back, like when you get off the gold standard, right, and you just the money becomes basically just a construct. Yep. It's just a promise that certain entity, like the U.S. government, the French government, whomever is that issues that money, is going to honor that, and then we are going to be able to transact in it and give it a value.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So the only value in the money is that whether everybody else values it like you do. Yeah. Right. So if you're holding Russian rubles right now, maybe the faith of the Russian government is not enough for everybody. Yeah. I mean, that's why you see currencies plunge like they do. In those scenarios.
Yeah. The Libra too with Turkey recently.
Yeah.
And like really, that's maybe we don't want to jump the ship or jump into this, but Bitcoin. That's why it was created, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because you don't have that construct over you.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So we get credit cards, that's the next level, and then we get digitization of cash. And basically, people today are like flummoxed by this idea that there's digital currencies when in fact more than half of the cash of the world is not actually paper anymore. It's all actually digital already.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody cares anymore cash these days.
Correct. Cash is king is kind of a concept that doesn't exist. And then now we have the next iteration, Brett, which is exactly what you said, which is cryptocurrencies. And I think it begs, we start with the big dog, the first one on the block, which is Bitcoin. And so maybe Hatem, maybe give us a little bit of just a quick background on Bitcoin.
I think I'll let Brett. He's a millennial. His generation created this stuff, So let's talk about this big dog. I love that you call it the big dog.
Yeah,
Bitcoin, the big dog.
The big dog.
Let's go, Brett. Tell us more.
So Bitcoin was, the original cryptocurrency, and it was made by this guy named Satoshi, who no one actually knows who this is, if it's a guy or a girl, where they live, where they're from, even if they're still alive. And to this day, it's one of the biggest mysteries out there. And so what Bitcoin was is an ability to transact this currency without a government. And so it uses a mechanism which is a little bit technical called the proof of work mechanism, where it's going to have a bunch of computers around the world. And if these computers solve a very complex mathematical problem and they agree, then they'll add it to this ledger that we kind of brought up in the beginning. And this ledger is public, everyone can see it, and no one controls it. And so ultimately, that's the decentralized nature of it, is these computers all agreeing to put something on a block of the blockchain on the ledger. So basically just a way to transact money without the government telling you what to do. It's got a finite supply. So there's, I believe it's around like 13 million that are only going to be created. And so
No, 21
million.
21 million.
Yeah.
So there you go, corrected.
Thank you for that explanation, because you explained it really well. The one thing also, though, that Bitcoin was created after the financial crises.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important to understand the circumstances, right? The financial system almost collapsed. The government starts basically bailing the banks who created the problem and create a massive inflation problem. And people are pissed, right? So you're like, we can't rely or we can't trust these central bankers or these banks to really run our economies. And that's kind of the idea, right, behind Bitcoin and really cryptocurrencies, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of the white paper that Satoshi publishes, right? That's basically what they talk about.
Yeah.
And I think we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but then we get into the question of, decentralization and how efficient is it actually versus having centralization.
That's another story, right?
Yeah. So, I've been kind of really toying with this idea of decentralization, especially being a part of this DAO and these communities ultimately, that a lot of it's anonymous, right? And we see in crypto, there's always going to be bad actors. I was at one of these Axie parties, which is an Ethereum blockchain, last night. They got $600 million stolen from them a few hours earlier.
Oh, you were at those guys'
You were
party?
there?
I was at the party.
Oh my God.
Everyone.
They were
By the way,
partying and someone broke into their...
threw a cake on someone. It was out of control.
And this is why we have Brett here. Brett is living this thing. I mean, I read about it in the news, in a news article. Brett actually lived it. But this, for those of you who don't know, this was one of the largest crypto quote heists that existed. 600 million was stolen off a video game, right?
Yeah, basically. And so the point of this, though, is that I don't believe in total decentralization, because you're anonymous and there's no basically recourse for anyone to action. So I think like the best course and most practical course is what we call just like sufficient decentralization, where the network's decentralized enough where it can, mute the bad actors, but ultimately can't be taken advantage of people that stay anonymous.
Well, I mean, I think, listen, what happened with Russia and Ukraine and how we saw that some of the crypto exchanges are stopping Russians or bad actors basically from really kind of laundering or getting assets out of Russia, shows you that we can't really be fully decentralized, right? I think if we all want it, and if really crypto wants to be adopted widely, we need to have some kind of transparency as to who has what and so forth.
And this, again, this libertarian idea, and I think we talked about this last time in our Roger Ver, is that the guy's name? Who's last month I couldn't come up with his name, but this time I remembered. He's like the hardcore libertarian that leave everybody alone. And ultimately, this concept doesn't work, right? Because if we live by that idea, we have anarchy pretty much in any space, whether it's with money, whether it's with governments. We have free speech, but you also can't yell fire in a movie theater. So there's got to be limits on decentralization, and forget like the governments and such. Like, what if I buy something via Bitcoin or I have Bitcoin and I get it hacked? Who do I talk to?
Oh, SOL.
No one.
You know what I mean? Like, can you imagine if you had a $600 million, like, let's just say it was your money and it was just gone. Like, okay, now what?
Even weirder, because like these people that are stealing the money, it's all on public information, right? So like a lot of these times, these hackers aren't even getting the money out of the actual accounts and can use it. So they often like will work out deals basically with the company to return the funds and then keep, let's say, 20 million of it and showing them how they did it. But it's so funny. That,
so it's a job interview is what you're saying.
Can't do anything. It is.
It's a job interview. If you can hack enough people's money, they'll hire you to do something.
That happened in the early days of the internet. So
Yeah,
not that different.
It's really a bounty.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. I feel really good about that. But
so is Bitcoin a currency, or is it like it's a distant cousin gold? Which one?
Gold a currency?
So
I would say it's closer to gold.
Okay, what about you, Aya? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say it's closer to gold only by the very nature of its finite status.
Yeah.
I think the idea of Bitcoin, Brett brought this up earlier, it's very inefficient for transacting.
Right.
So if we look at the crypto area as sort of like money as a whole, Bitcoin is the gold standard, I think.
Right.
That's kind of how I look at it, because it is finite. It is tied to something specific versus all these other, protocols. And we'll talk about different protocols, Ethereum, Solana, that kind of stuff. But it's finite. So the equation in very simple supply demand equation is, if more people use and transact and buy Bitcoin and there's a finite supply, it should go up in value.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, and we're seeing that too. Like, there's a lot more adoption. There's a lot more people that want to own Bitcoin. So I think the idea of me using my Bitcoin to buy anything is really stupid, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to hold it.
Yeah.
It's also interesting around like the inflation conversation of it, right? Because like when you think about inflation and what does well in inflationary environments, a lot of real assets do, right? Like commodities, you're going to talk about real estate, and like you can almost argue that Bitcoin is in that, even though it's not real at all, right? It's completely digital, but yet it has that finite and should price, and we haven't been seeing
Has it though? Has it?
So here's my thing about a hedge on inflation. It's a great hedge on inflation, stocks, but they go down when the inflation goes up a lot.
Yeah.
Bitcoin and crypto in general, but also Bitcoin, trades like a high octane tech stock, basically. Yep. So it is a more exaggerated version of whatever it is the riskiest of risk asset classes, right? So even if it's a hedge, which it might be, we don't know because it's still fairly nascent of a technology. It's still going to move like crazy. So if you're buying Bitcoin thinking you're going to have a gold-like scenario, that's probably not the right investment objective for you.
I think everyone uses the past as a way to explain the future, and it's necessarily not the best way of going about life, but we need to use that construct because it helps us really get through life. And you're right. Like, I think the excitement around Bitcoin is not exactly like gold. It has some characteristics like they look like gold, but ultimately the excitement is about the fact that we have these digital worlds that have been created, and these economies are going to be a lot more prevalent. Web3, metaverse, and all these.
Oh, you're jumping the gun, Hatem. You're getting everybody. Okay, that's a teaser. We're gonna that we'll leave that for later on. But we're gonna talk about Web3 and we're gonna talk about metaverse.
Okay, so big duck Bitcoin.
Well, we got so Brett mentioned something as proof of stake, and I know next we're gonna talk about Ether and the Ethereum network. But tell us actually what proof of stake. What does that mean?
Yeah, so proof of work is what we talked about with Bitcoin, and that's essentially the computers working together. Proof of stake is just kind of the next iteration that's a little bit more efficient, and basically users can stake their Ethereum on the network to help validate the same transactions in a more efficient way.
Yeah.
Okay. And sorry, I got them backwards.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So, and thank you for reminding me, because we are GK and because we are a sustainable firm and we believe in sustainable energy and really protecting our environment, I cannot ask. Bitcoin is a very, very energy intensive endeavor. I heard that the amount of energy we use for Bitcoin just for one day is what Denmark uses for a year or something like that, which is nuts, right? I don't know if those stats are right, but
who knows? 80% of all stats are made up. Everybody knows that.
People argue about this energy consumption all the time, but like, do you know how much energy like Twitter and Facebook and all of these other tech companies use as well? It's a lot,
right?
Arguably much more of the problem.
I think Denmark just needs to use more energy. Is what
Denmark is very efficient, man. They're very efficient, actually.
No, you're right, but I think what Hatem is saying is true, and everybody talks about Bitcoin specifically. They do consume a lot of energy, and it just makes it more important for renewables.
Sure.
to use this because this, again, in our opinion, this technology is here to stay. We're just at the beginning. We're in the first inning still.
Oh yeah,
of this thing.
Oh, the cat is at the back.
Yeah,
I mean, it's $1 trillion asset class.
Yeah,
it's not going to go away. The government is going to go is going to try to regulate it.
Yeah,
but I think it'd be stupid to.
Well, they need to regulate it. Yeah, they need to regulate, and actually, regulation, I would argue, is not a bad thing.
Yeah,
it's actually, and a lot of the crypto exchanges and the people who support crypto, again, not the hardcore libertarians, are saying that we need regulation to weed out the bad stuff and to make it more of a accepted class amongst the normal people, not the Bitcoin, gurus.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I mean, we're always going to be in a spot where innovation is going to outpace legislation, and that's happening time and time again, even since, we talk all the time, like since the printing press back then. And so it's ultimately, just has to catch up, and we need younger people in our government to understand this first.
I agree with that wholeheartedly, because I don't know what if Biden can even say cryptocurrency without stumbling on.
Well, I mean, I think all of the Senate, the whole of congressmen, it's sad. I've watched those hearings with Zuckerberg, man.
Oh my God, when they're like, brutal. How does Facebook make money? He's like, we advertise.
That was amazing.
But anyway, Brett, so we talked about Bitcoin, big dog, and now let's talk about, currently number 2, but possibly number 1 in the future, number 1 in our hearts, maybe. Let's talk about Ether and the Ethereum network.
Yeah, so Ethereum, if we say Bitcoin is digital gold, kind of a lazy way of explaining that, but it's okay. And Ethereum, is more of like the Apple App Store, where you're having all of these decentralized apps being built on top of that blockchain. And ultimately, it's there's much more utility to it. Because you can create non-fungible tokens or NFTs. You can create all of these decentralized apps on top of it. And ultimately, it's like the first use case, really, for crypto. Yeah.
I like to think of it as, Bitcoin is the iPhone and Ethereum is the iOS.
Yeah, no, it's a really great way of explaining it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, the promise of cryptos can be realized through that network, right? Because we're talking about, I don't know, we work in finance, we still have to send spreadsheets sometimes. I have to call a bond desk to buy a bond or sell a bond still. It's 2022,
and it's got to wait 2 days to clear, like 2 days settling dates. There's an argument that when you sell a stock, given the technology that we have right now, why does it still take 2 days to settle a transaction? It should settle in 2 seconds.
Yeah. Or like, what if you have to send money to someone in London on a Friday? You're actually better off getting a suitcase of cash, getting on a plane and flying it over there.
It's faster.
It's going to be quicker than over the weekend.
Except you can't take more than $10,000 in a plane, Brett.
But he's
it's my own plane.
Whoa.
You know how many NFTs he's got to sell?
All right.
But no, I know Brett has said that for comedic effect, but he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
How insane is it that you cannot send money on Friday at 5:00 to somewhere else? Like, it takes 3 business days to finish it.
And this is the promise of the blockchain technology, and there is a ton of things being built on it.
Yeah. So let's talk. You mentioned the word, the acronym that everybody on Earth is talking about, and that's NFTs. The non-fungible tokens, which, by the way, I honestly never heard the word fungible until I got into crypto. And now I feel like every 4th word is fungible. So tell us on a very basic level, Brett, explain NFTs to us and why we should even care.
Why thousands of people are in downtown LA at the convention center.
Exactly.
For 3 days.
Let's back up to like what exactly like fungible tokens are and non-fungible tokens. So think of these fungible tokens are like your currency, right? So the actual ether that you're spending, or like the US dollar, right? That's a fungible token. And a non-fungible token is a unique item. So you can basically trade that unique item for the fungible token or cash, or you can buy, unique items with your fungible token. So they're basically interchangeable. But a non-fungible token is unique. Think of it like an item in a video game, right? So you have to spend a fungible token, a currency, to buy that item, but then you have an NFT. And so this can be across a ton of use cases. honestly, there's a lot of hype out there right now, right? You're going to probably see 90+% of these projects go bankrupt, blow up eventually. And what I really try to focus around is utility. So, there's a million art projects out there with what an NFT, and what
so
really
hold on. I'm
matters
sorry,
is
Brett.
utility
I
behind it.
sorry. I don't want you to get ahead of yourself here. So we talked about what those are, right? The hype is about all these basically JPEGs that people are selling for thousands of dollars.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, millions of
It's
dollars.
crazy.
People sent one for $80 million. I think the biggest sale for, I don't know, for Sotheby's, I believe, or whomever it was.
Oh, that one. With
Yeah,
all the
it was
different
almost,
pictures.
yeah, it was a digital picture. It's literally a JPEG, you know? So let's talk about what that hype is. Like, is it just because a bunch of people made a bunch of money in crypto and they just showing it as a way to show their newly found riches?
Nouveau riche.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, nouveau riche. There you go.
there definitely is like a societal like look at me when you have these things, kind of similar to like a a Rolex watch in like the digital age, right? And especially with those older pieces of history, because blockchain is public and it's on the ledger, there's a finite history of it, right? And so people have looked to those items like Beeple or like the crypto punks as a part of this digital revolution, as like a collector's item of this will always be here. And if crypto becomes the new age of money and it is what everyone says it is, then ultimately that could be very valuable one day because it's a piece of history and a piece of art.
And I think you just touched on a basic human thing. We all spend a lot of money on things to show our status. Either it could be a Mercedes or a Tesla or Hermes, suit. Or I think Putin wore a Prada coat to the last that was cost $17,000 to the last rally he did. Because I guess that makes him feel like he's powerful, right? So we all human beings have always done this, right? Throughout history. Yeah. So this is maybe a way of doing it in the digital world.
Yeah, and it's not really different. Like if you think about it, right? Why is the Mona Lisa so valuable?
Yeah,
it's actually a pretty ugly painting.
We all agree that it is.
It's pretty terrible looking, and it's actually very.
She always looks at you.
But if you see it in real life, if you've ever like gone to the Louvre and seen it in real life,
it's tiny.
It's actually worse than you. Yeah, it's tiny and it's worse than you ever thought it would be.
All right,
and you're like, this, like Da Vinci, you did so many things in your life, and this is what you're known for.
Yeah.
And so it's not different than that, really. It's like, right? Imagine, I don't know, 100 years from now. Somebody owns the Sotheby's thing and is like, this is the Mona Lisa digital,
So yeah, art in the eye of the beholder. And we have to agree on that.
And status, it has value if people say it has value.
Yeah.
That's what art is, right? Yeah. Otherwise, how many worthless pieces of art are in hotel rooms and in your people's houses,
Yeah, so let's go back to the one thing which you said, the ability to authenticate, because I think that's really the real value with NFTs.
Yeah.
And you can use different things. Like you can really identify whatever item you want, regardless of who made it or who owns it, right? So let's talk about that process, because I think that's really where the value is. And is that something that the convention people are talking about? And something I want to hear what people are talking about.
Absolutely. So there's a big kind of rise, like, the first NFT wave was these collectibles and the pieces of history, like the CryptoPunks, Crypto Rocks. Now it's moving into like one-for-one art or like utility projects as well. So like even when I was like walking around, there's a lot of galleries at the NFTLA where they're digital picture frames with one-for-one art, like basically pieces that famous artists made, and it's like displayed in real life. So I always thought that was, pretty cool. But now what people are more talking about is like the utility of these things as far as like a specific culture. Like if you're into a specific video game or a specific, like you're really into golfing, there's like the Links DAO, which they're going to, ultimately kind of think of it like a country club membership in order to get into that community. And your pass to the community is that NFT.
Right. So it's like your membership into whatever group you want to be part of. And the NFT is the organizing body for that membership group.
Exactly. And then that membership group elects officials, just like any kind of, group of humans that, they have maybe legislation, they have, a venture arm, whatever it may be, and they may go try to buy a golf course, right? And then you can actually go play on that golf course with your access of membership.
This is exciting. I think
cool
this is
stuff.
super cool.
I don't know but how much does that help us money-wise?
I mean, if you have a way of organizing people around some common interests and creating some utility around there.
I did that on a Facebook group in 2005.
Exactly.
Yeah, but now you can do commerce, right?
Yeah, think
you can
about
buy
how hard
things.
it is to raise money too, right? But if you can, for some reason, there's this like insane ability to raise money right now through NFT projects where it's almost harder than getting traditional funding.
We know that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best the best thing to do.
Well, listen, I think everyone is excited about the space, and there's a ton of money going into it
for sure.
And it's going to.
We don't know where it ends up.
Right.
So ultimately, again, you get a bunch of smart people with a lot of money, and hopefully we'll find out.
Yeah.
But I gotta ask Brett. The question's coming. I need to hear about Boardapes. I need to hear about this.
So I was actually at the Ace Hotel, and I was with probably 15 Boardapes. So you can imagine each one of these people are holding a well over $200,000 picture. So there's, you're talking $2 to $4 million worth of JPEGs, right? And sitting out
on their iPhones. On their iPhones.
It's like wearing teeth around it's like wearing teeth around from the 1300s BC,
Yeah, and these, so it's more of a culture community, specifically with Boardapes Yacht Club, and they're making it like a lifestyle brand, right? So their plan is to basically raise money from VCs, open up nightclubs, open up places and parties to do things in real life, and they actually just tokenized as well. There's a lot of controversy around their team. There's a lot of controversy around the token that they released, and there's actually today and yesterday there was some news that someone actually sold their Boardape accidentally for like $300. So there was
I heard that story. Isn't this the same thing that Madonna bought for like $700,000?
Yep, same exact thing.
It's a JPEG of an ape, a Bored Ape.
But it's access to the community, right? So if access to the community is worth $200,000, and you can go to these parties and meet these celebrities and make business connections that maybe you use in your own world.
I mean, not very different from
a golf club membership.
Give a membership exactly to Riviera.
Yeah, exactly.
$300,000 to get into Riviera.
Yeah,
if they let you
exclusivity. Yeah. It's just okay, all right. And then you mentioned smart contracts. Can you explain to people a little bit what that means exactly?
A smart contract, think of it like, the best way to explain it is when you buy a house, right? You have to go through escrow, and you need a third-party intermediary to basically hold the money from the buyer and hold the property from the seller, both put it in the account and then distribute it to the other parties. So a smart contract basically takes that third party out, and it's based around the computer algorithm that can facilitate the transaction basically without an escrow account.
Well, that's awesome, because I think we pay a lot of money to escrow that maybe
buying a home is the most archaic process you can ever go through. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Escrow, title, it's such bullshit. You
pay like $2,000 to print a document.
And this is really like the promise of blockchain, right? There is a lot of really these use case scenarios that would just have not changed in 100 years. And we have the digital tools to be able to really make this process efficient, cheaper, and really safer and more transparent. So we eliminate the middleman, everyone wins, right?
And I think it's important you said safer, right? Because up until now, we've talked and really headlines what you hear, $600 million crypto heist and all this kind of stuff. Like, there is a lot of security that actually gets to be part of this. And we'll talk in a bit about, cold storage versus hot wallets and things like that.
Right.
But like, what about the security threat of having this money in the ethos somewhere?
Well, it's decentralized, right? So the idea is you can't, not some one person has one password that can just hack into it and steal it from everyone, right? So that's really the beauty of the decentralization. Does it work very efficiently?
It just stole $600 million.
Yeah, well, it's human errors, probably.
When's the last time you heard of a bank robbery of $600 million?
I don't know. Money Heist on
Money Heist. They did a great job. You know, that was very good planning.
Yeah.
They had the answer to everything in the Money Heist.
Yeah.
It's a great show, by the way.
Amazing show.
Yeah.
So yeah, blockchain. You know, this is kind of, I think crypto is the first iteration.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of this is what we call DeFi, decentralized finance. A lot of the tools that are going to be created. I want to talk a little bit about Web3.
Yeah, love Web3. This is to me the really exciting part of the blockchain.
Yeah.
And it's not just crypto assets. Crypto is great. But so tell us a little bit about, you know, some of the implications, Hatem, of Web3. Like, what are we talking about? What does that even mean? What is Web 1? What is Web 2? I guess we dropped the 0.0. We're now too forward thinking to have the 0.0.
Listen, we're not trying to be expert in the subject. You know, Ayala and I were talking. We're generalists. We try to understand these things to a certain level, and then we bring up more experts. But basically, Web3 is a word that's been thrown around a lot these days. You know, just like the metaverse.
Yeah.
And not many people understand what it is, but it is basically an all encompassing term that captures cryptocurrencies, smart contracts, decentralized finance, DAOs, infrastructure, DeFi, all these things together is basically what Web3 is.
And really the future of the internet, so to speak.
Yep.
And I don't know, Brett, I know you and I have talked about Web3 or 3.0 because I'm old.
So, I mean, like, we can kind of walk through what Web 1, 2, and 3 even are. Like, for most people who, like, we say Web 3, but then we're like, okay, well, what were the first two?
Right, exactly.
And so, like, Web 1 was really just, like, being able to look things up online, right? You're talking when you had dial-up internet, you need to look up a word in the dictionary.
AOL, baby, let's go.
Better not say a bad thing about AOL.
Addresses. Whatever it may be, it was very like database driven, right? And then Web 2, you know, kind of was made famous by things like Facebook or Amazon, right? Where it produced commerce between people. And you could, you know, basically interact with people socially on the internet. So that's kind of what you think of as like Web 2. The problem with Web 2 and what we're seeing is that it's very centralized, right? Whether it's worrying about free speech on Twitter, because that's a central organization, or worried about Facebook censoring people or doing whatever they may do to change human minds and basically societal norms, right? And so people thought, okay, well, what if we don't trust these central, you know, organizations anymore, and we put this trust into each other instead? And so ultimately that's Web3, where now these applications are being built not in one central entity, but the people who own the token. And these people can vote on different initiatives and really be a part of the process of building the company.
Yeah. If you think about the web, it's basically been like, this is, you know, the reason we call it Web3, right? Is a third iteration of essentially trying to democratize information,
access,
right? So the first one is you had access to information. The second one is we gave you access to information. And the third one is now we can have create and or control the access to information.
Such a utopian view of the world. I hope it works out.
It's not going to work out that way. We know that because we know what the downsides of total decentralization is it's a goddamn free-for-all.
Yeah. So anyhow, so that's Web3. Cryptocurrency is basically the underpinning of Web3.
Do they stand to upend these companies, really? Do we really think that decentralization ends up breaking the tech titans?
I think.
Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, I think that it'll slowly start eating market share, but we really need like a hit company to like really grab people's attention and like pull people into the ecosystem. But like, just imagine a world where like you Google things, and instead of Google getting paid on those ads, the ads that you're seeing are actually paying you, right? So like you start to think about these things in a different light, but I ultimately think like same thing with play to earn video games, right? You're going to be able to play these games, which was a major theme of this NFT LA conference. I want to say over half of the booths had some type of game. So I think it's going to take, you know, some type of video game, some type of social media company, whatever it really is, to kind of tip the iceberg on that and really make a difference in people's lives, well, when they're actual day to day instead of just in theory.
Yeah, it's a super app. Like someone has to create a super app, something that really brings some nice traction, and I think is going to be created. But ultimately, Facebook knows it. Their system, their model doesn't work. it's going to get killed eventually. So they're spending a ton of money into the metaverse or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think every tech company is going to do some stuff to be kind of forward looking and figure out where that next iteration going to be.
Yeah. So you mentioned Facebook, Meta. They're spending a lot of time, and the metaverse is ultimately part of this Web3, right?
Correct.
Right. So once again, for those of you who don't remember or know, the metaverse is really just the overlay of your digital and physical life.
Yep.
Essentially, VR, AR,
XR, basically.
XR, mixed reality, whatever, omniverse, metaverse, whatever fancy term you want to ascribe to it. But ultimately, we're going to more and more, we are going to intersect our digital and our physical lives.
Yeah, and Brett talked about gaming, right? I think that's really the first step, right? Like a lot of people spend a lot of time in these digital gaming world, and this is what is it, earn to play, you said?
Play
to earn.
Play to earn.
So people spend 6-7 hours playing video games. Why not make some cryptocurrencies while doing that, and that's really the idea.
Does anyone else feel like we're just like lab rats, just basically doing this? I saw an episode of the Black Mirror once, also on Netflix, also that feels eerily like this, where we're just sitting there and just playing video games to pay for something.
Yeah.
I don't think that, similar to the situation where total decentralization is kind of off the table, I think it's like the total metaverse where you're, this Black Mirror kind of vision of you sitting in a chair all day and being plugged into the metaverse like 24 hours and living an alternate reality life. I think that's either very, very, very far off or may never happen because ultimately, like there's, when we talk about metaverse and people automatically just jump to that conclusion, when it's really more about like, hey, maybe I can have a meeting in a virtual office with someone around the world. And like, or maybe I can play a video game that's a little bit more immersive. And so that's what I think it's really about, more than just living in a different reality.
Yeah. Totally.
I think you just said it too. Like, it's not the worst case scenario, or not the scenario that everyone thinks is somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
So we're probably we're already spending a lot of our time in digital worlds. Just even if you're thinking about emails and Zooms and stuff like that.
If you're watching this podcast.
Right, watching this podcast, whatever. So I think becomes more interactive, more immersive, and that's really where we're going to be. I want to wrap it up by talking a little bit why GK, financial services, wealth management, investment advisory firms, likes to advise clients on crypto, and talk a little bit about digital assets division, because it's important to kind of differentiate speculation with investing in the future, and how we went about it. We'll have a lot of disclosures after this, so that we're not pitching digital currencies on this, but we want to explain why we're doing it, right? And Ayal, you want to take that?
Yeah, so we believe in this future of decentralized finance, right? All three of us on this call, that's why we're here talking about it. So if the world of finance is going, I personally think that the world of finance is going to change, and it's going to create almost a parallel system. So not a mutually exclusive, but a parallel financial system, which will be decentralized, partially decentralized, and partially centralized. And maybe the decentralization is to the point where companies like Visa and MasterCard and the bank are involved in the decentralization process. So we kind of get a little bit of both. So in doing so, we want to be part of that. I look at it as this is a technology, whether it's a crypto asset or whether it's a tech stock like Google or whatever. It's a technology that ultimately I want to be invested in. And there's a few ways to do it, and owning the coins themselves are one of the best ways to do it. It's really sort of the baseline of everything. And we try to only buy the ones that are the big ones, and not speculate.
The big daddy,
the big dog, the big dog. Big daddy sounds a little weird.
That's Bitcoin. That's Bitcoin. Sorry.
But we try to buy the stuff that we really feel has the best chance of succeeding over time. I know we didn't get a chance to talk about Solana actually a little bit, but Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe Solana. And obviously it's a very high risk investment, so you got to plan accordingly.
And that's kind of what we are. Like we know people are doing this stuff. We love innovation. We love investing in innovation. So since people are doing it, we want to make sure that they don't get hurt. They have someone there helping them, And that's kind of what our digital assets division does, is really help you understand how to do it safely, how much to put in your assets, which is very, very small portion of your money into it, and understand it's very speculative in many ways. So be okay that you're going to lose it, but also kind of be part of that wave, because we don't know where this goes, and it could go somewhere big.
It could go somewhere huge, and ultimately, if it doesn't, that's why it's a small percentage of your portfolio. And we want to make sure that people avoid the common mistakes that happen with speculative investments, like don't buy Sushi Swap, right? Like, I don't know. Does anyone actually know? Can anyone here name what Sushi Swap does?
I don't. You know
what I mean? So trying to get people to avoid it, and people get enticed by this sort of lottery, like, oh, I put I put $1,000 into Dogecoin and it was worth 100,000. Well, how did that work out for you now?
Yep.
So
it's a gambler's mentality.
It's an absolute gamble, and there's a very big difference between gambling and investing. Even a speculative investment, can be an investment and not just a complete gamble.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Make sure you understand what's speculation, what's investment.
And I think there is, and people ask me this question all the time, because this is speculative still. But again, we are making an investment because it's a long term. We're not sort of like buying these random things. But people will ask me, well, what do you think Bitcoin is worth? And this is kind of where the definition of speculative investment comes. Because if you ask me what Apple's worth, I could say, well, they're going to sell X amount of iPhones. And if we do discounted cash flow, blah, 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 we'll end up here. But is Bitcoin worth 50,000, 500,000, 5 million? I honestly don't know.
Nobody knows.
Right?
We can all speculate.
So that's the exact point, and that's why you don't put most of your money in an asset class. No matter how bullish we are on these kinds of things, we just simply don't have the ability to foretell what's coming from this.
Right. So very fascinating conversation. I feel lucky to have Brett in my team,
for sure,
because I feel like I'm a dinosaur sometimes at 40 years old. But it's not, the world is moving so fast. It really is, and it's really important to see what the young people are looking at, what new technology has been built, and not to dismiss it, because that's how change will happen. And
that's how you end up a senator asking Mark Zuckerberg how they make money.
Exactly. But also, it's healthy to be skeptical. It's good to.
You should be skeptical.
You should be always skeptical, but also look at the world with an open mind. And I think hopefully that's what future money is about. Is really about us getting these new ideas and really understand how that makes sense. We didn't talk about investment opportunities, but I think the crypto here is really what the investment.
The crypto is the real investment opportunity, and we I guess one of the areas which we talk about a lot, NVIDIA. The chip company that we love so much, is the backbone of all of this, right? The chips, are processing. The mining of the coins actually happen through NVIDIA chips. Coinbase is an interesting company, but ultimately, I'd rather just own the coin itself.
Talking about exchanges real quick too, I want to make sure that we discuss security, because if you have your Bitcoin and Ethereum on Coinbase right now and it's on an exchange, you need to stop this video and call us immediately, because it's not safe.
You're right. That's your pitch right there. Call me immediately.
Your Gemini accounts can get hacked, whether it's a link that you click on, like a phishing scam that we're also careful about doing, or something like a SIM swap, that basically they just take your phone number and reset it to a different phone and reset your password. So even if you're being super safe, your money is still not.
That happened to me personally. I got a SIM swap. Someone took over my phone and stole my Coinbase crypto. This was 3-4 years ago, and it wasn't my fault. It was someone hacked into T-Mobile system and were able to basically impersonate me and take over my phone and change my passwords and so forth. So these guys are very sophisticated, right?
Absolutely. And I think I guess we didn't really touch on it too much, but what Brett is talking about. Hot wallets, cold storage, you hear these terms. Maybe give us a 30-second breakdown before we leave, Brett, and why they need to call us now.
So hot exchange is like you having it on your Coinbase account. You can basically just send it very easily, a few clicks of a button, right? Bringing it onto cold storage or like a ledger or hard wallet, basically you have to have this hard wallet with you, whether it's a USB drive or on a server. And basically, when to approve the transaction, you have to click a button on this hard wallet, or you have to pull it off of the hard drive. So someone in a different location in the world can't just log into your account and send it. You have a physical device that's actually holding the keys.
Right.
Yep.
And I think that's really important. It's like almost like a digital safety deposit box.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important for everybody to know this. If you have crypto money on a hot wallet, i.e. connected to the internet somehow, it is much more, it's much riskier because it is going to be subject to these hack attacks versus the cold storage, which are much safer.
Yeah.
Which we do here at GK.
Perfect. So I wanna close this out with Brett. What's the most exciting thing you saw at NFTLI?
Ooh, so
I know, put you on the spot here.
Yeah, I know. I have to say it's one of the play to earn games, or like just a play to earn game. I'm not sure which one's going to hit, but I think there is going to be a cultural phenomenon with one play to earn game. There's even one called Upland AL. Which,
oh no! What do they do? Do they have you ride jet skis the whole time?
They're building a 1-for-1 real Earth metaverse. So they're opened across like a bunch of cities, like Los Angeles, New York, and they're actually selling like the real world just in the metaverse. So
buying real estate in the metaverse,
real fake estate. What do we call these?
I think
meta estate
ultimately changes the way and pulls a lot of people into the ecosystem that you're going to be able to earn money from somehow. I think that's my number one takeaway.
I have a feeling that my child will be playing play to earn games if they come out. So, you know, he's gonna. I'm gonna be like, get a job. He'll
Maybe
be like,
you're making more money than you. I don't know.
Dude, who knows, man? If I'm doing it right, he will.
Right. Thanks for amazing insights. Send us any questions, any comments. Be careful out there. It is definitely the Wild West.
Yeah, for sure. Remember that a lot of good came out of the Wild West, but a lot of people died too.
Yeah. Thank you. Future money.
See you guys.
Cheers.